Just a quick message to the YouTube overlords before we get started here. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This infringement of copyright is called fair use and is allowed for the purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, or general, critique. I think that falls under criticism. We're not making any fucking money doing this. All our footage is under 30 seconds and heavily edited with no audio, which we will be providing commentary in the place of. So if you guys could not fuck with our Videodrome review, that'd be real cool. That said, let's dive into it.
Why did you watch it, Max? Business reasons. Sure. What about the other reasons?
Max Wren is a victim.
I woke up with a headache.
He has been exposed to Videodrome.
I'd been hallucinating for a while, ever since...
What?
Since I first saw Videodrome.
His brain is already receiving video images.
I think that massive doses of Videodrome signal will ultimately produce and control hallucination to the point that it will change human reality.
Soon, his visions will coalesce and become uncontrollable flesh. Videodrome is seducing Max Wren.
Please, come to me now. Come to Nikki.
And Max Wren can do nothing to stop it.
What makes you think I need help? None of our test subjects has returned to normality.
Television can change your mind. Videodrome will change your body.
Long live the new flesh.
It will shatter your reality. Videodrome, starring Deborah Harry and James Woods. A shocking new vision from the creator of Scanners. Coming soon to a theater near you from Universal Pictures.
Videodrome was written and directed by David Cronenberg. It was produced by Claude Hero, as music by Howard Shore, cinematography by Mark Irwin, and editing by Ronald Sanders. It's got special effects and makeup by Frank Carrere. It was released on February 4th of 1983. It stars James Woods, Sonia Smith, Deborah Harry, Peter Dvorsky, Les Carlson, Jack Creeley, and Lynn Gorman. It was filmed on location in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and it fucking rules. Today we are obviously joined, well, at least by Forrest at the moment, and an absent Septum Sin, who should be back any moment. There he is. He's skittering around back there. This is our follow-up to our Scanners discussion that we ran a couple of weeks back. Unfortunately, this got delayed a little bit, but we're here today to get that coverage done. Very excited to dive into Videodrome with these fine folks here. We've got Forrest Bennett of various fames down here.
Mo, what's up?
Yeah, man. It's happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us once again. You're kind of becoming my de facto, I guess, co-host for these Classic Cutz episodes. And I got to tell you, I don't have any complaints about that. Welcome, neither. Brandon. How you doing, buddy? This is a long time coming. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, bud.
Struggling with technology.
Well, that fits the theme of tonight's episode for sure. I had some technical difficulties of my own coming in here. Videodrome does not want us spreading the truth, apparently. But, I think it's going to go pretty well. We got a lot of footage for you guys tonight. A beautiful trailer right there that trivia on IMDb would have us believe was created mostly using a Commodore 64, and I believe that to be true. I guess now's a good time to give it our first impressions and general histories with Videodrome. I guess we'll start with you, Brandon. When did you first see this film? What was your initial impressions of it? And, have you watched it frequently since, or is this a relatively newer revisit for you?
It's been a while. I want to say I watched it when it first came out on Criterion back in the day, because I'd heard about it. And that's been a couple of years now. God, I don't know how long that's been, but I'd heard about it long before that. And I'm always interested in some oddities and strangeness of these types of films. I am not into self-mutilation stuff, so it's kind of I must have blocked it out mentally when I watched it the first time. But it's probably been like at least 10 years, probably more, probably closer to 20 years since the last time I've seen this. And I will say that I did not block it out this time. I'm not, like I say, I'm not as big. I think that's why I don't really like Return of the Living Dead 3 all that much, because I'm just not into the self-mutilation stuff. But I do think that the visuals are cool. I like the concept. It reminds me a lot of a combination of Society and Evil Dead Trap, which I liked both of those films somewhat, but they definitely both have disturbing points to it. But that's what it reminds me of, a combination of the two.
Right on. What about you, Forrest? What's your general history with Videodrome and your initial impressions of it?
Let's see. I remember I was catching it on television. Like, I think it was on IFC when I was a teenager. I remember like seeing Debbie Harry naked kind of caught my attention. Seeing Debbie Harry naked caught my attention. I was already a Blondie fan because of my dad. And also The Fly was one of my favorite movies. The Cronenberg's remake of The Fly was one of my favorite movies growing up. So I was catching a bit of it on IFC when I was a teenager, and then when I was in college, I rented it from a video store. I rented it from a video store because Tower Video in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's not there anymore, but they had a whole cult film section. It was in that section. So I rented it. During an October movie binge. And I now have it, and I now have the Criterion DVD, which I bought in a milk crate. A friend of mine, several years ago, a friend of mine sold me a whole milk crate full of horror and cult and exploitation movies that the record store he worked at had just acquired.
Fuck yeah.
So that was among the movies in the milk crate. Cronenberg, especially like early classic prime 70s 80s Cronenberg, huge fan. Love the weird gross visuals. Great
slimy vibes all over those things too.
All the slimy and like the mutating and the bonding of flesh and technology. I thought it's so bizarre and perverse. And I just eat it. I eat this movie. I kind of eat this movie up, but not like in a way that where I'm like where I'd be fusing to this laptop that I'm talking from right now.
Right. You're not putting cigarettes out on your titties or piercing your ears and licking the needles while you watch it or anything.
Yeah. It's a very visceral and very unique cinematic experience.
It is. We got some comments from my lady here about the trailer. She says, what if it was a penis poking out of the screen? What if, indeed? It might as well be with the Cronenberg shit. You watch more of his movies with me, you'll understand what I'm talking about there. And we, too, wish it was a giant virtual video penis popping out of there. Because that would have been weird, especially once it shoots him. And then we've got Cody in there just commenting on our general handsomeness. Thanks, man.
Hey, Cody.
My history with Videodrome is... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there with your greetings, Forrest.
No.
My history. Good.
No. So you're good. You're good.
We're getting it out of our system early. Good. What were you gonna say?
Nothing. Go ahead.
We both took a drink at the same time right there too. Our timing is impeccable already. This is the quality you come to expect over here.
We are birthday twins, so
it's true. It is really true. Look it up. So my history with Videodrome starts in high school, man. My buddy Keegan, who has been mentioned many times when it comes to obscure and weird cinema on these channels, he showed me a tape at some point that had Scanners on it. He'd previously given me a tape that had... Actually, I think Scanners was on the same tape as The Beyond and I think Reanimator.
Oh, nice.
And
now, that's a triple feature right there.
Fucking A. And he brought that shit over, showed it to me, and I was instantly sort of hooked, needed to know more about Cronenberg. It turned out I'd already seen a couple of his movies, The Fly being one of them. But that was before I was to the point where I was paying attention to who directed these fucking things.
I was kind of... I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I should mention that because up until I'd seen Videodrome, I think The Fly was the only Cronenberg movie I had seen. So Videodrome kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of his other work.
Right. And especially if you're the type of person to pay attention to a director, The Fly, I imagine, was a good gateway for a lot of people into Cronenberg because it was a remake of a movie that your parents were probably fond of. So they ended up showing you that fucked up shit, just like my parents did. And it absolutely will just irreparably damage you, and regrettably, I wasn't into searching for directors at the time. But after seeing Scanners, I knew I had to see like immediately as much Cronenberg as I possibly could. And Videodrome, I want to say, was the very next one that he brought over, like maybe a month later at the most. Probably more like 2 weeks, because when you're a kid at that age, time feels like it's passing super slow. But in reality, it's not.
It's one of his early films, too.
Yep.
Didn't he just have like Shivers and Scanners before this?
Up to this, well, he had done Scanners prior to that, and then before that, he had Crimes of the Future, Shivers, Rabid, the
Rabid.
Brood,
That's the one.
And then Fast. Oh, and also between Rabid and the Brood, he did Fast Company, which was a deviation from everything else he had done up to that point.
That's right, dude. This is part of that whole, like, he dropped like a trilogy of fucked up bangers with Scanners, The Brood, and this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't really top that as far as like an 80s run of dropping just fucked up horror films. Yeah. David Cronenberg became a legend, I think, with that. And it didn't really matter what he did afterwards, if we're all being honest. By this point, he'd already had his couple of films where he was sort of working it out. And then 3 films back to back where he proved that he was a legend. Throw The Fly on top of that, and this guy was already like going to be a timelessly loved director, regardless of whatever shit he put out afterwards.
I would say Canadian cinematic royalty.
That's true. For Canuck, he does not put references to hockey and stuff, and I think that I don't know if the Cronenberg movies would be better for it, but I'd take it.
No, but I do admire though that there's a lot, because a lot of movies and TV shows are filmed in Canada, but very few acknowledge that they are in Canada. Whereas David Cronenberg does not is probably the one filmmaker who is unapologetically Canadian about his movies.
He really is, dude. Yeah. And this movie gives you a good look of what is it, Toronto?
Toronto, like, and with Rabid and The Brood, he makes it clear that those movies are in Montreal.
Right. And you get a real good look at the griminess of Toronto in this movie. I mean, it's on full display the whole time without even having to do like a walk down Skid Row type scene in the movie. The filth is worked right into the vibe of the movie. And
which is funny because considering Toronto is basically just a cleaner New York.
Right. Right. But basically my impression of, Videodrome when I saw it was it just blew my fucking mind, as I think it does most people when they see this. By today's standards, when it comes to these sort of mindfuck movies and real cerebral films or whatever that are trying to take you down different paths of thinking or whatever, you could be correct in saying that Videodrome is a little bit basic and a little bit tame compared to some of those. But you have to look at this from the perspective of either kids that were seeing it for the first time, at whatever point we saw it, or people that were seeing it for the first time in the early fucking 80s, 83, you know. So this movie was definitely mind-blowing to anybody who laid eyes on it at the time. The concepts were practically high art, and the execution, you know, matches up with that. I think that, you know, a lot of movies that have came since Videodrome try way too hard to be weird, whereas Videodrome is a perfect masterclass in how to do that in a sort of minimalist way that I think everybody should watch if they plan on making weird films of any kind, you know. The pacing of this movie is basically fucking perfect. There's some cool trivia to go along with it and lots of cool stuff to break down here, but that's essentially my first impression of Videodrome, and it's always stuck with me. It's one of those movies that regrettably over the last maybe almost 10 years, I haven't revisited it as much as I probably should have. Yeah, I've been busy watching other B movies and, you know, other independent films and things like that. But before that, I used to revisit Videodrome like once a year, so I don't really know what happened. I ended up buying the Criterion like 2 years ago from our buddy Dane, and I did not watch it until this review came up. So I don't know what that says about me, or if I'd just pumped enough Videodrome into myself that I was able to survive for a few years without it. But this viewing of it really kind of, you know, reminded me that I probably need to watch this once a year. It needs to be a yearly revisit.
Oh, for sure.
You know? I think, you know, and maybe you guys might dispute this, but I think that this is Cronenberg's masterpiece. You know, Scanners was him finding his footing, you know, and then this is him like delivering that fucking vicious, you know, haymaker to just put you down for the count. I think his films previous to this and The Brood, I would say The Brood kind of in the same category. Like, the dude meant fucking business in the 80s. There's no disputing that. Of any horror director that attacked that decade, I think David Cronenberg did it in the weirdest way and in the wildest way. Like, every one of his movies that he put out was rad. And we can't say the same for a lot of our heroes. So cheers to you, buddy.
And so far, my favorite Cronenberg is Naked Lunch, but that's just me. I love weird shit, and that's.
I like Naked Lunch.
Yeah,
but Naked Lunch could not exist without Videodrome.
Exactly.
Know? There's a lot of his modern movies that could exist without Scanners. All of them could exist without the movies that he did before that. But without, I think, The Brood and Videodrome, I don't think you get most of the modern Cronenberg. I mean, that's where he finally realized and The Fly, he realized he could get away with just about murder. And when it came to just weirdness and insanity. What were you going to say, Forrest?
I would say you don't get, you can say, because you don't get, without Videodrome, you don't get Naked Lunch, I would say, or Existenz, which I feel like is probably the most, like, I think is probably one of the it's definitely a spiritual successor to this, which out of everything he's done since the 90s, everything he's done since he kind of moved away from everything, ever since he moved away from body horror. I feel like Existenz is a true spiritual successor to movies like this.
And you're on mute.
Well, before we dive into breaking down the film that Warhol called, the Clockwork Orange of the 80s, if that's true. I don't know. Where do you guys sort of stack it next to? I mean, am I wrong in saying that there's been a lot of crazy, like, cerebral fucking brain fuck type movies that have came out since that are arguably, like, crazier and harder to follow?
I mean, there's gonna be. I mean, it's.
I would say there's his son's movies.
Well, even something like Fight Club or Donnie Darko kind of falls into that category too, a little bit.
I'd even say films like Return of the Living Dead 3 can be a mind fuck in a lot of ways. Yeah,
I'm talking more in that, like, that sort of where Videodrome kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it has you rewatching the movie to kind of figure out what's real and what's not. Like what is the truth behind the film. as we break this down, that'll make more sense. But I mean, there's lots of movies out there that have went for that same basic thing, where it's like after a certain point in the movie, you don't know what's really happening, what's real or what's in the main character's head, and then you end up with more questions than answers sometimes at the end of them. Again, I would say this one's tame compared to some of the ones that have came out since then, but I would say that a lot of those are overly convoluted in an attempt to confuse you, where Videodrome is very straightforward but achieves the same results. So I don't know which one I respect more. I mean, I can see there being like some merit in something as awesome as Fight Club, but then some of the other stuff that just weaves in a bunch of random nonsensical stuff or confusing shit to try to distort the reality of the film. I think shit like Society or shit like this does a good job of doing it in a way that doesn't fucking feel, sort of needlessly complicated, if that makes sense.
Look at some of Japanese stuff. Like, if you want to go old school, you go Tetsuo the Iron Man. I mean, yeah, you got that. But then you got like other stuff that has a lot of that effect-wise similarities. Meatball Machine, good example of one. I think is one that's, by the way, totally underrated, and we should definitely hit that one day on one of these shows.
Oh, they will both be going down, my friend. We'll be doing Tetsuo the Iron Man and Meatball Machine.
Because those have a surrealness. A lot of those. I mean, you got Tokyo Gore Police. Just a lot of those have that weird, surreal craziness and jankiness combined with that odd, strange gore and body horror. That's, I'd say, either Cronenberg inspired or lateral.
For sure. Yeah. The use of rebar and shit like that in the Tetsuo the Iron Man or Meatball Machine stuff is just proof that it like originates practically from Videodrome. There's a very weird ribbed like that, and like H.R. Geiger stuff is where it comes from. Like that ribbed and riveted sort of black polished metal kind of gross grotesquerie. Most of those films wouldn't exist without Cronenberg or David Lynch, but even David Lynch, I mean, when did Eraserhead come out? I don't think that was
77.
Like, this old. Oh, that's okay. So it's like solidly several years older. I feel like Cronenberg sort of figured out how to do the David Lynch weirdness without getting so far up his own ass with it that the movie became kind of unwatchable. I mean, let's be honest. Unless you're on drugs, Eraserhead is not that much fun. It's just you could movies you'd enjoy watching more than that film. What's going on? I don't know. I guess my overall question was: do you guys still think that this is potent as like a mindfuck film compared to the other films? Do you think it's in its simplicity, has it lost anything compared to that more convoluted stuff? Don't answer one or the other because of my opinion on it. I probably explained too much here, so I should have just asked the question.
I think that the formula is pretty basic by today's standards, but not by those standards. Now, the general craziness and strangeness, I mean, there's a lot that can come close to it, but I don't think anything quite bests it when it comes to that overall. I mean, not unless you're just going all out just to gross out, which then it's no longer has that impact. It's a different item.
Right.
So I think that's, I do think that's one of those things. I mean, you're going to have films that'll have an extra gross out factor or an extra creepy, ugly factor, but I don't think they combine them as well.
It's a date, girl. We're doing it. Yeah, I mean, I think this movie hits it perfectly, man, when it comes to this stuff. And showing it to people that have never seen it is still a treat. Like, I didn't get to do that this time, but my kid came in during, like, the last 2/3 of Videodrome and hung out for a bit. And then my mom was through there while I was watching it as well. And she was like intrigued by it because she likes James Woods, you know, and then seeing the movie and seeing how fucking weird it seemed. Like, it goes without saying that my Videodrome Blu-ray has been lent out, you know, and I'm sure I'm going to get some interesting feedback from those viewings, you know.
I had somebody watch it the first time. Kim watched it for the first time with me. As she was walking through here when she came back from work, she was like, "Yeah, that movie's fucked up."
That's pretty much a standard reaction to Videodrome.
I unfortunately do not have anybody close to me that I can anybody near and dear to me that I can whose mind I can blow with this movie. It seems like it seems like most, and those who are near and dear to me who I hold near and dear to me have already seen it.
Well, that's because you're a good friend, Forrest. You made sure that they saw it, or they already had seen it. And you chose wisely. So we're gonna dive into the characters real quick. I mean, the movie pretty much opens up on Max Wren, who is this guy who works for this company called Civic TV or Channel 83. It really kind of just depends on how you want to refer to it. At some point, you know, he's hanging out and he is introduced to like this crazy video broadcast that's going on called Videodrome. They don't know that at first. They just know that it's some sort of crazy pirate broadcast that's going on that his friend Harlan, who works through him through the TV station, is able to pick up. And he learns of like this crazy erotic sort of torture porn that's going on this thing called Videodrome. The reason that Max is interested in this is because Civic TV or Channel 83 is known for broadcasting salacious content, hardcore or softcore porn. We're really never sure. Presumably softcore, since it's like a broadcast TV station. But you never know. It is also Canada in the 80s before they got all woke and everything. So it's really hard to say what's going on with Max other than that he's looking for some hardcore content for his video station. He wants something that's really going to push the boundaries. And it's made clear almost right away that he is pretty much in this for personal gratification as well as, you know, pushing the boundaries when it comes to his professional pursuits. What do we think of Max Wren as a character played by James Woods?
Scuzzy sleazeball.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not a very likable character for me, which makes it, I guess, easier for what happens to him in the movie.
Yeah, me neither. I sort of get this like even before shit gets weird, I kind of get this sort of oh god, did you guys ever watch Cat House on HBO?
No, but I think I'm aware of it.
Okay, it was this documentary series about a brothel in Nevada, and he reminded me of the pimp who ran it. And that guy was like really scuzzy, and he posthumously ran for office in Nevada. but that's he kind of reminds me of guys like that and Larry Flint.
I could see it a bit, yeah. I can see that. Interestingly enough, dude, the guy that, because there's a point prior to like this, you know, whole sequence in the movie where he finds out about Videodrome, where he's actually meeting up with like this Japanese porno distributor. You guys remember that part of the movie?
Yes.
Where he meets up with the guy and he gets the Japanese softcore off of him, and then he's like, I don't know if this is worth a damn or whatever. And then his continuous search for more hardcore shit is what leads to the scene you saw there, where he finds Videodrome. This dude, the guy who played this fucking guy, ended up becoming like a minister of the province in Canada politically, and his opposition used Videodrome against him in the election. Like, you know, they drummed up the footage of him playing a pornographer in the movie and used it as evidence that this guy wasn't he was not a savory character, I guess.
Well, I know that the guy, you know who he reminds me of? Almost like Bill Murray when he was in Scrooge as almost like
Yes.
that kind of character. I could see James Woods' character fielding that Scrooge commercial, like, "Ooh, that woman died. You can't buy publicity like this." I
can see him wanting solid gold dancers' nipples on live television.
Well, we all have our kinks. I'm slightly more sympathetic. I wouldn't say sympathetic. I'm slightly more understanding of the James Wood character. Joseph says, has he ever played a likable character? And I think probably mostly not. I can't recall one. The Max Wren character in this movie, yeah, he's kind of sleazy, and he's definitely about pushing the boundaries of what people talk about and what people watch on TV. I look at him a lot more, I guess, as like more of like a free speech or free content consumption advocate in this movie.
Mhm.
I mean, he doesn't seem outwardly rapey, but then there's that part in the movie where he comments on fucking Blondie's dress. But at the same time, Blondie admits that, yeah, you're pretty much right. And then, based on whatever you consider to be real in this film, he ends up hooking up with her anyways. But there's some part of me that likes a dude like a Max Wren or even a Larry Flint or whoever the fuck that's out there, like being like, I'm going to put whatever people want to see in front of them. It should be their choice what they want to look at. It shouldn't be up to the people that deem themselves morally superior to limit what we're able to put our eyeballs on. Morals should be a very personal thing. Whatever I do with what I'm watching, it shouldn't matter, and I'm not out there watching Videodrome type stuff. My porn search history would be very tame compared to most of America right now. I had just only recently embraced eating ass. But the point is, there shouldn't be fucking people out there limiting what we can watch, and as long as nobody underage or without consent is being harmed, I don't see the problem. But I'm also one of those people that thinks that, just bringing back Roman gladiator shit would be way more rad than the Super Bowl, and I think a lot more people would watch.
I'm still waiting for American Gladiators to come back to television.
Yeah, bring that back, but they actually fight to the death and just make it death row convicts or something. I'm totally fine with that. I think that would be cool. But there's a lot of people would say that I'm some type of monster for thinking that. It's whatever, but I like a Max Wren. I'm a fan of that kind of a character, in as much as that I like what he's trying to do for our ability to consume content. Him as a dude seems pretty weaselly, and I don't know that's I would be his friend or anything. But he's
I agree. I definitely agree that he's that like with his philosophy as far as like, as long as it's not or the philosophy that as long as nobody's being consensual, nobody's being harmed, that's fine. But yeah, but I feel like Max Wren as a person, was not someone I'd want to know. I would not want to be friends with.
Oh. There it goes. Looks like the sound cut out.
Yep.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know what the fuck that is, dude. That's a thing that's been happening. You can still hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. Anyways, there's several times in the movie where Max Wren doubles down on his philosophy, where he's like better on TV than in the streets. He doesn't want this shit happening to any actual people. In fact, he's shocked when he learns that the Videodrome stuff is real, because he's like, why? It's way safer and cheaper to just use actors and stuff like that. So this guy isn't really advocating for the harm of anyone. He just wants to be able to put explicit or extreme content in front of people and have them make the choice of whether or not they watch it. And I think that that's still something that's going on today. It's a heavy debate in society today. And I think that it should be fine. Let you choose your friends, or let them choose their morals based on whatever they're exposed to. I mean, they're going to find it anyways. You know, if they really want to see that kind of shit, they're going to be able to find it. I'd rather know the creeps are right there based on what they're watching and and supporting than have to guess about it. You know, that's how you get a BTK. Dude just looked like a FedEx employee, and he was fucking killing people for like 30 years. So, you know, I don't know. I like a Max Wren though. Nikki Brand is Debbie Harry's character in this film, arguably the second of three main characters that we really have in the movie. What do you guys think about the Debbie Harry character?
Let's see. Is that the one that really likes sort of like the self-mutilation stuff that she was early into? I can't remember.
But she's the one. I mean, yeah, she was the one getting her ear pierced by. I mean, well, she was on a talk show with Max, where they were debating the merits of explicit content on television, and and
that's
then
her first appearance.
Yeah, and then later they hook up, and he pierces her ear while they're having sex,
and then licks the needle, which for some reason is such the grodiest part of it.
Yeah.
To me. And then when you think of that scene in the 80s when they hadn't quite figured AIDS out and everything yet, and, you know, it just makes it like really gross and kind of sleazy. So any thoughts on the character? I mean, I'm sure that at least me and Forrest have thoughts on her, being as she's fucking Blondie. It was pretty cool to see Blondie as a redhead in this movie. That was kind of neat.
She looked great with dark hair.
I thought her performance was one of the highlights of the film, to be honest, you know, which I think would have been surprising to most people back then, given that she was just some musician, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think might have been her first. I feel like this was her first feature. Might have been her first film as an actress.
It might be. If not, it's some other piece of shit, but you know, Videodrome's not a bad place to start. Blondie is pretty rad. I've always liked her music. I've always liked everything she's been involved in. And this is no exception.
Mine too.
Go ahead, mine too. Was it her first or?
No, it wasn't her first. But I think it's probably like one of her. But I think because I was looking through her filmography. It's like a lot of it was like a lot of bit. I mean, yeah, she's been in a few movies before this, but I feel like Videodrome.
This has to be like one of her most well-known things.
I think, this and Hairspray have to be her biggest movie or her biggest roles.
Yeah,
because she's all over this fucking movie, man. I mean, she is like, and you can tell that they filmed it so that she could be all over the beginning and all over the end of the movie. You know, so I'm sure she had tours or whatever she was doing at the time. It was 1983, so this was also at like the peak of Blondie, arguably. So it's pretty cool that she's in this movie. For most uninitiated horror people, she would be the celebrity of the movie, I think, you know, especially at the time in the 80s, you know. Maybe I'm wrong, though. And then our third character is Bianca Oblivion. Well, we didn't really get many of your thoughts on Debbie Harry's character. What do you guys think of her? Brandon's kind of being reserved. What do you think about the fucking character, dude?
I mean, like I say, I think there's an interesting dichotomy of what's on the screen and off the screen, which I think is actually a part of the whole Videodrome thing. Is like what we present ourselves as is not who we really are in reality.
True enough. And also, as the film progresses, we're not even sure that the version of Nikki that we see in this movie is even real.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe this is just his version. Like, this whole character is based on his visual interpretation of this woman, you know. What do you guys think of Bianca Oblivion, arguably our third main, like, real player in this movie?
Was she the belly dancer? No.
No, Bianca is the daughter of the guy who created Videodrome.
Yes.
Yeah, she runs a homeless shelter. She's kind of nuts. Yeah. I mean, you can just tell that by the way that she talks and their interactions with her. At first, it seems like she's totally on board with this weird TV cult that her dad apparently was part of. but then it turns out that she's actually kind of the good guy in the movie, in a matter of speaking. What do we think of Bianca Oblivion, and I guess by extension Brian Oblivion, who also appears on the talk show with Max? He only appears on TV, like on a TV screen, which I'm honestly surprised one of these weird, bizarre, like modern celebrities hasn't stolen that, like Kanye West or something. I could totally see him doing like I'll only appear on TV on a TV, you know, like an old CRT TV. I think that would actually be one of the cooler things Kanye could do. Nice Videodrome reference there.
Oh, I love her father. That guy is cool. I think he's one of my favorite characters in the movie, just because he is so eccentric, and his beliefs are very strange yet intriguing at the same time. I do love that. Then, of course, him using his daughter as his liaison is also pretty cool. I love that little weird video therapy that they're doing for like the homeless people down there. And just everything is just it's just really, to me, it's one of my favorite parts of the film is when they go into that dude.
What about you, Forrest?
Yeah, no, I agree. She was an interesting they're both interesting characters, and that it's kind of fitting that Brian only communicates through television. Like I don't think we ever see him.
No, he's not physically in the movie.
No, or at least physically among the other characters.
Even in the movie, he's not there physically. He's always on a screen. So the whole philosophy that he has for his appearances on TV is true even in the movie that we're watching, which is pretty fucking awesome. That's an extra little layer of like continuity and realism that Cronenberg puts in there to make it that much more legit. I like Bianca. I mean, she's fine. Yeah. You know, again, she seems nuts at first, but then the revelation that she's actually like a good guy is pretty cool. Meaning that this Videodrome thing was never meant to be used for like nefarious purposes, even though their purposes are kind of nefarious. I mean, she basically believes that same bullshit her dad is peddling about how the TV reality is part of your actual reality. So if, you know, we merge the two essentially and get brain tumors, we'll eventually live in a utopia of a bunch of people with brain tumors hallucinating all the time, I guess, is their aim. I don't understand it. Bianca seems to have figured out a way to use it to rehabilitate the derelicts of society. But, you know, I mean, which side are you choosing here, really? The people that are looping this guy into this crazy conspiracy to do with this fucking pirate signal that gives people brain tumors and hallucinations, or the people that are helping him not be a Manchurian candidate for those dudes, but, you know, are also expecting him to toe the line for their end of this weird thing where they're going to massively like reprogram the population with TV broadcasts. It's fucked up. And Videodrome kind of becomes a hard movie to talk about because of some of that stuff, because there's a certain point in our narrative here where it'll become clear that we're not sure what's real, you know, and that's pretty fucking cool. Do you guys have any additional notes on the movie as far as like, you know, sets, locations, effects, music, cinematography before we dive into the specifics?
I mean, the effects are, low budget. Despite the low budget, the effects are impressive, and probably one of my favorite parts of the whole. Probably my favorite part of the movie, the TV, like the TV, or like the whole, or like James Woods' VCR stomach cavity.
So much good stuff, much of which you guys will be seeing as we peel into it here. I agree, man. The effects are totally insane. I think that they complement the hallucination gimmick of the movie perfectly. You're never quite sure what was real about it or not, you know, like at the end of it. And I think that is very effectively done with the effects throughout the entire movie. As far as the music, I thought it was creepy and ominous. You know, it's kind of genuinely unnerving at times. They incorporate a little bit of a video game vibe in it at points that I think definitely helps sell like the future tech vibe of the movie that was going on. That's the same reason there's like Betamax tapes or Atari 2600, 5200, I think, cartridges around. It's they're selling you on the technology being a big part of this, and that high tech technology was Betamax tapes and Atari cartridges and reel to reel audio stuff that's sitting on top of his TV, as you guys will see later. Loved the music, loved that it kind of referenced that sort of stuff in it without it being like cheesy or anything. Like the parts where they incorporate some sort of Commodore 64 type music, it fits the song. It's not like in there just to be corny. In much the same way that the Commodore 64 graphics fit the trailer. They weren't corny in that thing, I don't think. They matched the vibe of it perfectly. Cinematography, any thoughts on the way the movie was shot or anything like that?
I think it's good use of camera angles. A lot of the shots have the power there. A lot of the times when they were panning over things, I thought it was very good and was very informative about what it was trying to give us message-wise.
Right. What about you, Forrest? Any thoughts on that shit?
Also, I have to agree with the great angles. Also, I guess also the cult use like the use of color. It's very noir. It's kind of noir. It's kind of noirish. Like a lot of shadows.
Very gritty.
Yes.
My notes on it are basically, the shots and the angles really enhance the weirdness, but they're not like super dynamic. The camera's not moving everywhere all crazy. It's just a lot of like perfect, zooms or, pans with the shit that's going on. It's a very, I guess X and Y camera movement throughout the movie. There's nothing too insane, but it does it at a pace with the vibe of the movie that makes it pretty much perfect. It's perfectly lit as well. You were kind of touching on that there for us, the lighting and the various colors and textures that they use in this movie, and the way that it's all shot, from the griminess of Toronto down to the weirdness of their sets that they built. It all kind of matches up and has a similar feeling throughout all of it. And even though it's kind of slower paced, again, the way it's paced with the shots of the movie and the way the action's taking place, it's never boring. So, they're not whipping the camera around or anything, but it's also not boring. It's just really good, like XY axis or whatever shots of the movie as it's happened. And it serves the weird fantasy hallucination vibes flawlessly, I think. If the camera work and everything was too crazy and experimental in the movie with the weirdness that's going on, it's just going to get distracting at a certain point, honestly, I think they did a similar thing in Society as well. The cinematography wasn't too animated. It really just kind of held on the stuff and panned over it slowly, or pulled back or into it real slow so that you could just drink in the horror and the grotesquerie.
I think there's a lot of similarities between this and Society if you think about it. A lot of the most grotesque effects are at the end, with a lot of teasers throughout. There's a mystery, there's something else to look into, and when they find out what the answer is to it, well, that's when everything goes to shit. I do think that Videodrome does a better job of spacing it out, whereas Society basically, it hits
nothing happens till the end,
and at the end, and that's the big show, and then bam. So I'll agree, Videodrome did a better job of spacing it, but I do feel like they're very similar and come from very similar cloth. I think society.
I also do feel like the society choice, especially now that we've really watched this and dug into it, I feel like the choice in society to make it so benign until the end was probably because of shit like Videodrome.
Yeah.
Where they're like, well, you know shit's weird like 15 minutes into that movie, you know. Whereas we want you to think nothing actually might be happening until the end, you know. Anyway, continue, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they definitely, I think society, of course, definitely pulled from this. You were talking about movies that tried to take this formula and be better with it. I think society made that attempt. I don't think society was successful, but I think that it wasn't one of those attempts to take that formula and run with it and try and get to a greater degree.
So we basically covered right up till Max goes on the talk show, essentially to defend them putting smut on TV, and we've kind of dove into what all that you know, entails. And we obviously saw the first time of him laying eyes on Videodrome. But pretty much it ends up being revealed that either they were already dating or his advances on her during the talk show actually got, you know, Max into Nikki's pants, aka James Woods into Blondie's pants, you know. So they end up going back to his apartment, and he's got the Videodrome tape, and she wants to look at it because she's like also secretly into all this stuff. Like her position on the talk show was basically that people are overstimulated and shouldn't be seeing all this stuff, which is probably true also, you know.
Yeah.
You could say that about some people. I mean, that's a valid counter argument to the shit that people like me and, you know, Max would be pushing on the public. But basically, you know, she's not like that at all in real life. She's the counter opposite of it. She is like the freakiest character.
Freak, yep.
She getting off on it.
I mean, she's basically Max is like piercing her ears while they're hanging out, and you know, she's burning herself with cigarettes, and they're, you know, banging on top of like a big VHS tape inside of a weird fucking, you know, H.R. Geiger sex dungeon. It's like if David Lynch did fucking 50 Shades of Grey right there for, for a couple of minutes. It's pretty fucked up, man. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not really sure what to make of this first whole sequence of this. What do you guys think? I mean, Max definitely seems like he's not trying to push the Videodrome thing yet because he thinks it might be dangerous. Like he's got to vet it out a little bit more. Obviously, he's sending like talent scouts out to look for it, as we'll talk about momentarily. But, you know, he's obviously also not trying to encourage this girl with her interest in it, but she wants to watch it, so he throws it on. He finds out that she's kind of into the self-harm or that sort of shit.
BDSM.
Because she asked him to take out a Swiss Army knife, weirdly specific, and cut her with it. And he's not into that. But there's evidence that her, you know, some other dude she was hanging out with had done it. But then he goes on to pierce her and lick the needle and fucking have sex with her on a big VHS tape. So what do you guys think? I mean, is like Max just talking shit, trying to be a nice guy? Or is he, you know, is there anything to this?
I think he's going in. He's going in for something way in over his head.
Oh,
no, go ahead. Are you going to say something, Brandon?
Oh, my screen just flickered. But yeah, I agree. I think that he's kind of getting in over his head. I think his curiosity is moving into places that he wants to be. He's kind of like experimenting on, but at the same time, I wonder if there's a part of him that's also not quite with how he presents, with being extreme and everything, where he's more curious, but whether he wants to be a part of it or not, he's still playing with that concept of whether he really wants to be a part of that world.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said about, I mean, there's a lot of free speech activists that say crazy shit, but then there's some of them that don't say that much crazy shit, you know? They're just people that understand the need for the right to be able to say some crazy shit, you know? And then however far, or, you know, I mean, I don't know. I think that the Max character definitely is into some of this stuff. I mean, he's definitely a bit of a sleazeball, you know. He likes some of the nastier shit for sure, but I don't think
He's also got his
nasty.
Yeah, I was like, he seems to also have his limits in terms of things like mutilation.
Well, dude, I mean, you know, there's the whole portion where he tells Blondie basically, like, you don't want to fuck with these people. We don't know who they are. They could be creeps. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit that happens with these video weirdos, pretty much. You know, there's no part of him that wants like unwitting participants in whatever his kinks are. You know, so he's in the very least a good guy in that sense, where he's not trying to just have this girl go down to Pittsburgh and get involved in a snuff tape. You know, I think that affords him a little bit of credit there as well. So at the same time, though, he's still asking his talent agent, Masha, played gloriously by Lynn Gorman. I love this lady in this movie. She's my second favorite character, actually, just because she's so fabulous. Everything about her in the movie kicks ass. So, you know, if you get a chance to watch Videodrome, pay particular attention to her participation in this, because, man, is it good stuff. You know, basically, he asks her to track down Videodrome, like this old, you know, European lady might know where the fuck there's some kinky, crazy sex broadcasts going down. And it turns out he was right. She was able to track it down almost immediately and basically warns him against it. That comes a little bit later, but pretty much right after he asks her to track it down, Nikki, aka Blondie, comes and says that she's got work in Pittsburgh, so she's going to go down there and try to get involved. This is basically where he warns her against it. She burns her tit with a cigarette. Max watches, and then I'm pretty sure takes a drag off the cigarette later, so he's still pretty fucking fine. And again, you know, he's been warned away from Videodrome at this point. But she, you know, he's able to convince her essentially to give him one name involved in it, and it turns out to be Brian Oblivion, the guy on TV with him earlier in the movie. I mean, did you guys see this coming a mile away or what? Where the weird guy on the TV is somehow involved? Or was it a surprise for you the first time that you watched this?
I think for me,
I was shocked, dude. For some reason, I never
same
put
here.
it together.
I was surprised. I was surprised too. It's like,
it's a pretty surprising reveal that, you know, holy shit, it's the dude from the TV. And then you meet his weird daughter, you know, that works at the homeless shelter and all that stuff. We've kind of touched on that. I don't know. What do you guys think about the part where he confronts her about Videodrome when he meets her at the homeless station?
Well, I think it's more of that warning, still almost like you're getting in beyond what you're supposed to. But you got to kind of have your warning character regardless of the series that you've got. I mean, right. She definitely provides a good warning to stay away from that shit. It's dangerous. I do like her little setup there that they've got with her father there.
Yeah, I mean, they, again, she kind of does warn him away from it, but she also thinks he might be part of like some, crazy syndicate to hurt her or whatever. So this is the part of the movie that always confuses me, because later we learn that she's not involved in it at all. But she somehow still arranges for him to get a tape, or he just gets it because they were going to give him a tape all along anyways. Because he ends up getting that tape, and this is actually the first part in the movie. Like, I guess you could say the first part in the movie where there's actual hallucination stuff going on is where him and Nikki are screwing around. But during this part where he slaps Friday, like,
oh yeah, this part was strange. Like, he slaps her and then she turns into no, he slaps her, she's Debbie Harry, and then he slaps her again, it's her.
Yeah, and she has no idea what he's talking about when he says that he slapped her. And it turns out that, it's because she wanted to give him, like, this. She left his mail for him, basically. She didn't even want to give him the tape. I don't think Bridie was involved in anything in this, and she is fucking adorable. My third favorite character in the movie is Bridie. I mean, she leaves him adorable, like, little recorded, wake up messages on a videotape. It's the best thing. Yeah, that scene for me is the first one where he's like aware, I guess, that he's having a hallucination. You could say that the first Videodrome hallucination is where he's having sex with Nikki,
on the videotape.
Yeah, but exactly. But this one is more subtle, and it's the first one, I guess, for us where it makes us be finally like, wait a minute, what? This guy's like not just, maybe he's just seeing things, It kind of introduces that idea before for a fact that he's been just seeing things, because they've been broadcasting hallucinations to him the whole time. He ends up getting a tape from her that, he watches, and it is a pretty weird experience all around. A lot going on here where, his
the
TV starts
is
breathing and getting dick veins, and he goes ahead and just climbs in it, as you do when your TV starts moaning and convulsing and, growing dick veins. You just climb on in that thing right in the fucking screen.
As you do.
And, he ends up just kind of waking up, from what I remember. He's kind of been starting to carry a gun at this point of the movie as well, according to my notes. But yeah, he climbs inside that TV, man. He goes back and kind of confronts Bianca about the tape, if you remember correctly. And she kind of tells him, that Videodrome is dangerous. He's been seeing shit since he saw the first Videodrome tape. This is kind of the point of the movie where he makes that connection. And she confirms it. The signal basically causes, you to have hallucinations via a brain tumor that it induces. And, she let him watch it because she thought he was one of these people from her father's, partner's side of the organization that have come to, like, kill her. Because it turns out that the dude who invented Videodrome is obviously, old Mr. Oblivion. And basically they killed him to get control of it so that they could use it for nefarious purposes. Meanwhile, as, call back to what I was saying earlier, they had their own nefarious purposes of reprogramming people anyways. But this guy's trying to use it for, like, governmental weird, cloak market stuff where they're, weaponizing the thing, essentially. What do you guys think about this whole scene here where he confronts her about it? She confirms it. Nothing?
I mean, I guess really, if you think about it, the jig is up in a lot of cases, but that's also getting to that too late section of it. He's already gone way too far in.
Yeah,
It doesn't
he's
really
fucked
get to
already.
that until he gets back to his like fixer or his like old pirate guy.
Right, but this makes it very clear that he's already been infected with something, you know, and things are not going to go well for him unless he can figure this out. What do you think about this whole sequence for us, where it's like kind of all confirmed that, you know, this thing he's fucking with is no return level shit, and they kind of revealed the whole brain tumor hallucination angle?
Um,
I mean, you think they were going to Manchurian candidate his ass at this point, or I thought there was going to be like a more elaborate thing that went on. Honestly, the first time that I watched it,
like a bigger scheme.
I mean,
yeah,
I
but
thought
then it
when
just good.
I first watched it, I thought it was going to be like sort of like what's that movie, Hostel, where it's just like a bunch of rich people coming in and making snuff tapes for extra money.
Yeah, I guess I could see something like that. You know, I just didn't think he was going to go for it, and the whole movie was going to be them trying to like eliminate him for not going for it or whatever. But really, what it turns out happens is, you know, he just goes ahead and watches this tape that she gives him, this second tape from her dad that explains more of it. And this kind of illustrates the whole element of it too, that maybe Max is a little too morbidly curious about this stuff. Like he could have almost walked away from it at this point, but he just keeps going because he wants to fucking figure it out and see all of it at this point. You know, but basically the second tape explains that Videodrome was intended to essentially induce everybody with these brain tumors and make a new reality where everybody's, you know, video reality is merged with their main reality. Since half of our life that we view through TV screens is video reality anyways, it's already part of our reality. I mean, there's like interesting actual arguments to be made about this this whole theory here in the movie, because it does actually make some sense, you know, which is what makes it plausible for the film. You know, they wanted to try to figure out a way to merge our video realities with our real realities, you know, and this dude created it by having a brain tumor removed. That's a quote from the movie. I don't think that's what actually happened. I think they invented it and it gave him the brain tumor. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but it does seem like a crazy thing someone with a brain tumor would say, is that, you know, they removed this from my brain and it created Videodrome. Like, that doesn't make any sense, because later when we see, it's clearly some type of technology that's been developed. Am I off base here? I think that this is...
I mean, I think this is kind of a take on MK Ultra, if you really want to look at it like that.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Because that stuff was just being uncovered back then as well, so... And that stuff would make you hallucinate.
Yeah, man. You know, it's... Let's see where we're at here. Well, it turns out that, you know, like, this stuff makes him grow a tape in his tummy, or a gun holster. He grows a tape slot in his tummy.
Yep.
And puts a gun into it. Yeah, this is one of those scenes in the movie that's pretty famous. You guys got any thoughts on this?
That creeped me out the first time I saw it.
I mean, I think in the last couple of sequences, it's pretty clear, you know, it's escalated from him seeing a couple of things to stuff, it being impossible to tell what's real now at this point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's growing like tummy badges. He's taking tape, or I mean, you know, guns into it, and they're not coming back. One of my favorite parts of the movie is where he's like panicked looking for the gun after it's in his stomach, you know. What were you going to say, Forrest?
I would say videotapes that melt and
breathe.
Breathe, yeah.
I feel like anybody who's taken enough hallucinogenics or edibles, like of just even weed at some point, has seen like a tape breathe, maybe. Like Videodrome. I've certainly seen some bagels breathe a couple of times. It's not a fun feeling, and I wouldn't recommend doing that while watching this movie, but it could be a good time. The tummy gun always freaks me out in Videodrome, like, and especially because, again, the last couple of sequences make it clear that you don't know what's real in this movie anymore. You're gone.
I love the imagery that they do about basically using the tape slot to insert a cassette and use that cassette to give him subliminal orders to carry out, which I love that. I think that's a great thought, a great concept.
It is pretty fucking great, dude. The idea of this guy like having this tape slot or a vagina in his stomach is pretty awesome. And he can store like a gun in there like a magician for later. That's pretty fucking cool too.
Guns, videotapes.
Yeah, everything. So pretty much, you know, as soon as this happens, like, you know, he's already got this gun in his belly. He's watched these tapes. It's like he doesn't know what's real anymore. He gets this call from these guys that work at this place called what the fuck is it? Spectacular Optical. All right, and this guy Barry Convex wants to meet with them. And it's eventually revealed after taking a limo drive to a warehouse that this guy Barry Convex is this dude that worked with, you know, Mr. Oblivion to essentially create Videodrome. He's got it refined into this helmet that he clicks old Mr. Woods into. And, you know, he does it under the pretense that he wants to record his hallucinations so that they can understand better what's going on. In reality, it's just that they fucking are, you know, perpetuating this scheme the whole time to loop, you know, Max into this thing. This is the stage of the movie, if you look at the trivia, where apparently, you know, Cronenberg says up till this point, everything is real in the movie. Like, he's seen all of this stuff. But this is officially the point in the movie with the helmet where you don't know what's real or not. And Cronenberg himself leaves it ambiguous. He doesn't explain beyond that. He's just like, everything in the movie is real until that point, and then some of it isn't. That's what he's saying, you know. And I think that's pretty fun. Fuck yeah. A little mystery. I don't know. What do you guys think of this whole sequence where he meets Barry Convex and he's like, I think he goes along with it a little too easily, but at this point in the movie, also Max really wants answers. He's been studying this thing the whole time. It's been revealed to him that he might have brain tumors because of it, and he's been exposed to this crazy signal. So he should probably follow this through to the end. Yeah, maybe he goes along with it a little easily, but what's his choice at this point, you know? Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I guess if you're gonna hallucinate out and go crazy, just go with it, you know.
Yeah.
Might as well. What else have you got to lose? You've already lost your mind.
losing your mind and becoming
Fair enough.
literally becoming a tool.
I mean, I don't know, dude. If you met this creepy motherfucker, though, would you just be putting your head in his helmet? I mean, that I feel like no is going to be my. I'm just going to politely decline.
I wouldn't have been
Yeah.
involved in the weird snuff tapes in the first place because to me, it's like now whenever you got something,
I could see
real
taking
cool,
it to a certain point, and that's another discussion in itself. Like if you were a TV producer, what for this particular channel doing this thing, what stage would you take it to? I think I would have given up a little bit sooner, but still levels of this where he could just walk away and be like, nope, I'm done with that. I'm moving. I'm going to do something else with my life. But he doesn't. He just keeps going. And it gets him pretty much exactly where you would expect. So again, with keeping it in mind that we don't know what's real from this point on, we get the whole sequence where, you know, Blondie shows back up. There's the transition into what we assume is the actual Videodrome reality. She hands him a whip, and things get real fucking crazy in that red room, man. Just whipping that TV set. And it turns out to be that old lady that he got some help from earlier, and she's dead in his bed. What do you guys think of this whole sequence?
Freaky.
weird. Yeah.
Got real fucking weird, didn't it?
Yeah. Really weird, really disturbing, and it's like how much more troll is Max in? Can Max get in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty fucked at this point. So I guess leaning into it and just whipping the shit out of that TV is something I can relate to a little bit, but you had to get yourself here. Brandon, any thoughts on this?
I think it just it really goes to show things have just gone way out of hand at that point. But it's all a trippy acid trip from here on out. At least it's
pretty
something.
much.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the worst part of it for me is I really like the Harlan character in the movie. I think he's probably the funnest character in the movie. And then he reveals himself to be a turncoat piece of shit during all of this. Not even a turncoat, someone who'd been working for the enemy the whole time. Like, he was just a plant from the beginning to get Max involved in this so they could take over this TV station. But basically, you know, he wakes up from this whole sequence of whipping the TV, and it turns out, oh my God, this old lady's dead in my bed. Masha, what did I do? You know? And then so his first reaction is to call Harlan, his like pirate video homie, and have him come over to photograph the dead body to make sure that it's real or something. I mean, he's clearly lost grip on reality at this point. And the whole sequence, I think it's one of the most disarming sequences in Videodrome, because Harlan shows up and perfectly plays it as like his actual friend that's there to, you know, help him out. And it's such one of the funnest sort of comedic moments of the movie, if you can call it that. You know, and then immediately it's revealed that he is a fucking traitor, and he's been involved in this shit the whole time, and really old what's his ass from the fucking eyeball place is come to put another tape in his body, and they want him to be their fucking slave. Essentially, he's gonna go and, you know, kill the people at the video station so that they can have control of it and broadcast their crazy signal across the airwaves. I love his blink at the end of that too. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
That moment where he says, "What? No, I never watched any of that stuff." You're the only one who's watched that stuff. That made me blank. Like, oh,
it's so fucked up. The
Yeah.
Harlan betrayal in this movie makes me seethe with rage every time that I watch it because I like the character so much up until, you know.
I loved it. I loved the like pirate attitude of the airwaves, the old school pirate attitude. That's so much easier to pull off these days than it was back then.
Dude, these guys had such a rad friendship. You know, he's like this sort of upper scale yuppie like guy that you would assume is like this lameoid that just lives in an apartment or whatever. But really he's involved in like rad video pirating with this guy that works at his TV station and they just hang out. It was such a cool angle in the movie, and I thought it was the thing that gave both of them a lot of character. And there was that such a cool bonding moment too, where Harlan gets mad and he's like, "You know what? Fuck you, dude. I don't just come to your house to do shit for you. Like you asked me to come over here and like videotape some stuff or photograph it in the middle of the night, and I'm here, and you're just being a jerk." You know, like it's such a cool bonding moment between them right there. He even offers him a cup of coffee before he leaves. I mean, it's so comedic and awesome. And then it immediately is revealed to be a big ruse the whole time. Forrest, you got to have some notes on this. I mean, it's a rough moment of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, goddamn, even Harlan was in on it.
It's bizarre. I know. It's just nobody's on his side. Like, nobody's on it. Everybody's trying to.
It's a good way to
fuck him in his fucking chest tummy is pretty much what's going on most of the time. They're all just fucking him in that chest tummy.
They really are ratcheting up the paranoia by this point. I mean, you don't know who to trust. I mean, nobody's who they say they are. Like with TV, everybody who is on the screen is a fake.
Yep.
And that's just, it's crazy.
I mean, you know, what was your reaction to them putting the tape in him the first time? Did you think that meant that he was going to be like their personal assassin, or I don't know where my mind went when that happened, but I remember this movie being a lot more political. Like the first time I watched it as a kid, for some reason I thought they whacked him at like a political convention.
I think that might have been the Dead Zone. I feel like
it could be some crossover between the two. You know what I mean? Like for some reason, I thought this was like more political.
When he goes and he kills
the first time I revisited it after seeing it as like a teenager.
When he comes back and he kills the bad guy at the end, he goes to like one of those weird TV conventions to do it, and that's an
it's not it's a trade show.
Yeah, it's a trade show.
It actually is. Maybe this is one of those Mandela effects. I don't know. But I swear it was more political when I was younger. This was my whole point. Which is weird. You'd think I would see it as more political now. But back then I wasn't interested in politics at all. But I guess as soon as they mentioned like government stuff, I was like, oh, it's political. I don't know. Or like Forrest said, there was some crossover between me watching the Dead Zone at the time. Like the movie with Christopher.
Yeah, the Dead Zone movie is a totally different animal.
But still Cronenberg.
Yeah, still
and
Cronenberg.
Also something I saw around that time, which is,
if I recall correctly,
that wasn't one of those Stephen King movies I grew up with. The Dead Zone. That was one I checked out in high school. Once I was like, oh, there's more of these.
And they came out. I think they came out months apart.
Well, there was a whole Dead Zone series too. So.
Oh yeah, with the dude from Weird Science,
Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah, good series. I watched it a lot. Channel bouncing back then. It was like that Millennium with
Lance Henriksen.
Lance Henriksen, yeah, and then the X-Files. All running continuously. So good Friday nights back then. So where are we? Oh yeah, the reveal. Them putting in. I want to play something for you. After that, we get that whole sequence where the gun fuses to his hand, which is pretty fucking gnarly.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, and that's
these are those scenes. Go ahead, Brandon.
I just say that's a great representation of him being locked into his role as the assassin. That he's totally under their control. That he can't be separated from being the murderer that he's going to be.
Yep, there's no way around it. I mean, they infected him. Like, they got into his brain with the signal, and then they were able to put that fucking tape in his tummy, and that's all it took. Like, now you're fucked, dude. You end up just assassinating your coworkers at a boardroom meeting, which is another pretty crazy sequence in the movie. Which, honestly, nowadays would be a rough one to shoot, you know?
Yeah. All these mass shootings.
But then again, yeah. Back then, I think shootings like that were more common, too. Because if you remember right, what predated the school shooting was the postal shooting. You know?
Yeah, the whole term going postal.
People would go in and just shoot up post offices. Like when I first started working there, 15 years ago now, that was one of the first things they like talked to you about. Was that someone could come in here one day and try to shoot you. So you just go out one of the marked fire exits. That was literally it, dude. Yeah. If someone shoots at you, the exits are here.
Well, always good to know.
True. It came in handy more than one time, I guess. What was your guys' thoughts though when he initially went into that? You know, like obviously he's gone through it up to this point. You know, he's killed the fucking people at the TV station. I love the way he plays it off too, where he's just like, "Oh, my hurt arm," you know. They did it to themselves. Like he kind of implies that, you know. I don't think he even gets the full sentence out, but he like perfectly implies they did it. You know, it seems to me, based on TV reports, that he also just threw the gun down, which I think he does at one point.
I mean,
which
if you think about it,
further clue that he has actually not done most of this. Like a lot of it is in his head, you know.
Yeah. And most people would believe that even if there was a shooting, they wouldn't necessarily believe he was the one who did it. So he could easily get away from it regardless.
He completely walked away from it out into the Toronto streets and then was able to absolutely get away. But, you know, Friday knew that it was him. So that's how he gets on the news when we see him later. With a guy who is charging for people to watch a TV he has connected to batteries that he calls his monkey. I love that bit. I think it's the coolest thing ever. You know, that's what it would have been back in the day. Like before TVs, you would have paid an organ grinder for his monkey to do a little dance, and you'd been like, "Yes, indubitably, that's my entertainment for the day." And then you would have went back and put your powdered wig on a stand, and I don't know what you did with the rest of your life. Read by candlelight. I mean, there was no Netflix binging in those days, children's.
I would have probably done what I'd have given that probably given money to a guy doing that. Like, you know,
Oh,
just have a
sure.
little TV hooked up. That would have been, to me, that's like innovative right there, even by
That
today's
seems like the
standard.
type of hood character that I would eventually pull a barbecue next to and have a cookout while we watch something on his thing with like a $50 bill in his fucking tin, you know. Those are those opportunities you got to take to do shit like that. But, you know, he basically just goes in there and wastes old Harlan because he fucking deserves it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my favorite scene in the whole movie because Harlan is such a fucking betrayer. And I'm just so mad at him still to this day about it. So this see you in Pittsburgh shit just absolutely hits right where it counts, you know? I mean,
Blast him right through the wall.
And then walks out of the hole, which we do not have in our footage because we had to keep these clips at a certain pace or else they'll fucking just demonetize the shit out of us or give us a copyright strike. But what are your guys' thoughts about that whole sequence?
I mean, it was cool seeing him gain control, or at least some semblance of control. Was that after he revisited the girl and was able to get a little bit back, or was that directly after he shot the board up? I can't remember. I think it was.
What do you mean?
Because I remember I remember, like, I thought that he actually visited the girl because she was his second target, and then she
that's the whole reason he's there.
Yeah,
we did that sequence, didn't we? Didn't I show that? We'll show that clip again. It's real quick. Did I not show it? Maybe I didn't. Yeah, this whole sequence where he like shows up and gets reprogrammed, I thought it was one of the best sequences of the movie. I guess I didn't show it. My bad, guys.
I mean, I love that he was able to break free of it finally, and he was like, "I'm getting my revenge on this stuff." And who was the first person to get revenge on? Well, the dude.
Of course, it was Harlan, dude. I mean, Harlan was the dude who fucking fucked him over the worst, you know. Apologies for skipping that clip, but we're where we need to be. Again, I ask, any thoughts on this sequence for us? Septum. Take it away.
Calgon, take it away. Well, I do like the really bloody look of the videotape that the guy is doing for the second orders. I mean, that's just something pretty cool looking at the end.
Right, and I like the bleed, like the chest, the bleeding chest on the television screen.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty gnarly.
Indeed.
All right. So we are presented with the scene where Max Waxberry at the trade show. What do you guys think of this thing?
Oh, I loved it. It was like the rest of his vengeance there, and the guy was just basically he was so certain that he had already won, and then find out that his dude, his Manchurian candidate, kind of flipped back on him.
Right.
And such a disturbing looking way to die. Yeah.
I love it. It's the best cut bump I think any villain maybe ever gets in any horror movie, you know. He just rolls up on him, pops a couple in him. He explodes with tumors, and he's just like, "Death to Videodrome, long live the new
The new
flesh."
Flash.
And such an iconic fucking proclamation,
Yep.
You could almost see where
If-
it was political if you were going to go political with it. Long live the new flesh.
Dude, if I ever ended up somehow like the first person on the moon, or that might be one of those things that I would say, for lack of a better word, like death to Videodrome, long live the new. It'd be a cool thing to say. I don't know. I think it's one of the best moments in 80s movie history is that assassination. It just
Yeah.
And then the movie abruptly just shifts to him going to burnt out, like, old condemned shipyard to await his fate, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I don't know, you guys got to have some thoughts on this shit.
I don't know why my memory always goes to that. That's like one of the first things I think of is that burned out like ship he goes into, and I'm just like, this is one hell of a little piece of scenery to end at. And then isn't that also when they revealed that the girl that he had known had said basically, yeah, I did go investigate and now I'm fucked or something like that? Or was that earlier? I don't remember. But he was still tripping out by the time he went there.
I don't know. What about you, Forrest?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I really like the
Yes,
end finale where he goes and he shoots that feller, because it is disgusting.
Yes.
He just pops him full of lead, and then all of a sudden there's all type of tumors popping out of his
Popping
body.
out.
And
That's a great special
he's just
effect.
frothing at the mouth, and then there's a big old fucking ball sack pops through his forehead, and he says, "Death to Videodrome, long live the new flesh." I like this movie a lot.
Iconic line.
The build up to this insanity at the end is without question one of the coolest build ups in history. You basically got him going out and snapping and shooting people, and then this lady's able to reprogram him with a big old baloney dick coming out the front of a TV screen. She eventually shoots a Jewish guy all the way through a fucking wall, apparently on his way to Pittsburgh. And here we are at the finale of this movie. I love Videodrome. I think it's pretty fucking rad. I think that the finale in itself leaves open a lot of questions. We're kind of at this point. He's basically been reprogrammed, killed apparently the leader of the opposition to Videodrome, or the leader of the opposition to these people that, were trying to do the right thing with Videodrome. Now, it turns out there's other people he's going to have to take out, and it's going to be this whole thing where he, can go on to do it, but only if he can ascend into the new flesh, if he can become video personified, basically video Jesus. And we're presented with the idea that if James Wood goes ahead and just kneels down in front of this fire in the middle of this abandoned ship and blows his, unalives himself, that will make him the new flesh. He will become video personified and can fight for this cause indefinitely. What are your guys' thoughts on this whole thing?
That'd have been cool to see a sequel from this.
Yeah.
It would have been neat. I mean, I wouldn't want to have a Cronenberg sequel. This is one where you want this cheap ass, like a sleazy director doing this weird, like gritty, ugly sequel, and sort of like Lawnmower Man 2 style. I would have liked to have seen that.
Or any of those scanner sequels we were talking about on the last episode.
Oh
Yep.
my.
We'll be digging into those soon. What about you, Forrest? You got any thoughts on this whole end sequence?
Pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. I mean, pretty crazy. Max is pretty much at his last stand, and but yeah, he's got this gun, this flesh pistol for a hand.
That he does.
It's pretty wild. I mean, it's just pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
I don't know. I guess the final question is, are you one of those people that believes that the second half of the movie is a hallucination, or are you one of those people that believes that everything in the movie is a hallucination, or are you one of those people that believes everything in the movie was real? That's what it comes down to.
It's all real. It makes it much more fun that way.
Yeah, I agree.
I kind of entertain various positions on it when I come at it, because you could say that everything in the movie is real, and that does make it interesting. But then it also makes it pretty interesting that you could say that everything in the movie up to the point where he meets the guy is real. I think that's David Cronenberg's explanation of it, and I think that leaves open too many questions, because it's like, okay, the movie's all real up to the point where he puts the helmet on, basically.
Well, I mean, then again, if all of it's a hallucination, how much is it? Did he kill those guys in real life and then just have some sort of weird sleeper cell thing going on? Or did he not kill at all? Was he just sitting there for the end of the movie?
I think he killed them.
See, and that's where this movie becomes fun to discuss.
Yeah. He'd become a wanted fugitive.
Yeah, we do see it broadcast on TV later, but again, this is all past the point where, the movie, presumably up to the point where he finds the dudes and gets the helmet put on, the movie could be real, Like the signal could have been affecting him and he could have been seeing those things.
For all I know, he could be this, like, just, he was just, like, tweaking and running up. He walked up to the boardroom, and instead of, like, taking out a gun, he just pointed his finger, pew, 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 and then left, like, oh my God, I shot those guys.
Yeah, but in his reality, it was a bloodbath,
Yeah.
That could be true. I think that's the beauty of the movie. And I think it is kind of the beauty of Cronenberg being like, well, it's real up to this point. Then you can make of it what you will. I think it's probably all real, but who knows? And that's kind of what we got on this. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this discussion that we did tonight. Hey, Jester, Mikey. It's nice to see you in the house. Thanks for dropping by. You guys got any final words on, Videodrome before we take off? Would you recommend it to a friend?
Absolutely.
Depends on the friend.
Of that too.
But I do
I mean,
think it is essential. I'd even recommend this to Jake, not because
I
I
think
don't
Jake
think
would
it
love
would-
it.
I don't think he would like the movie overall because of the themes, but I do think that he would feel it's a must because it's a Cronenberg classic and because of
Right.
the importance of the film. So I think he'd get a kick out of it in some ways.
It's not gratuitous. And yeah, it's gore. I know Jake is not into gore, but it's not gratuitous.
Yeah, at any rate, like nowhere in the movie when they do this stuff is it gratuitous. It's done to serve the film. Go ahead, Forrest.
But yeah, I would. But yeah, I would recommend. I mean, I would recommend this to friends. Although again, it depends on the friend. Because I know people who just are not into horror at all, so they're the last people I would recommend it to.
Fuck them, dude. Those are exactly the people that need to watch Videodrome. After watching my mom walk through the room earlier while we were watching it and be like, "Oh, that's James Wood, right?" And then stay there for like 20 minutes and see some weird shit. I'm pretty sure that most average people nowadays could withstand Videodrome.
Yeah.
And be better for it, So show it to your mom, show it to your grandmama, Spread this around. Next holiday season, put Videodrome on in the background and just see who watches it,
Oh, my mom would hate this movie.
That's all the more reason to fucking run it at Thanksgiving, Forrest. What were you gonna say, Brandon?
One video I just shared was something that came to mind towards the end of this, is when you're talking about what is and what isn't, and it's essentially about these guys are sitting there after New Year's Eve, like, why are we in a tree? And then the guy goes into this whole rant about, well, we started New Year's Eve, we were having steak and mushrooms, and then there was this explosion. We went through this time and we had to drink some wizard pee and do all this stuff. And then it's like, but wait, where'd you get those mushrooms from? Oh, I found them outside. They were these red mushrooms out there. And then it shows them, it's like, well, what were we doing last night? It just shows them running around the backyard. Doing that. That's what I reckon.
At some point, they drank each other's pee. That's what I got from that. So. Don't drink your friend's pee. It's probably not good. So that's it. Unless you guys got anything to plug right now, which I highly recommend that you do.
I did recently work on a project.
Baby.
Yes.
There.
Oh.
Go ahead, Forrest.
I did recently.
Yeah, I recently had my first shoot of the year of the year a couple weeks ago, but I can't really, unfortunately, because of an agreement I signed, I can't really talk about what it is. But it's a project. But all I can say is that it's a project that I've really been wanting to work on for a long time.
Well, I just burned the first demo for Amityville Webcam's Blu-ray release. So I'm hoping that if it works out, then I will start my journey of submitting it to Kanaki, and then hopefully it will go on sale, which will be nice. And I've sent the master to Evan Jacobs because it will go on demand online in the near future as well.
Fucking A, dude. We're in that as well, so definitely check it out. I have nothing else coming up other than my discussion for Amityville Apocalypse with this motherfucker. Septum Sin this coming Saturday, I guess. So be there for that. We also have Maniac 1980 going down Sunday at 4 p.m. So if you guys are down to join us again for that, hopefully we can deliver another, discussion. Good times in store for the future. So stay tuned. Schlockaholics, Classick, baby.